And welcome back. You are listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman here on KX 93.5 FM, community-supported radio in Laguna Beach. As promised, we have an incredibly special guest tonight. We have Maureen St Germain, and she is a numerologist. She does Akashic record readings. She is an incredibly prolific author, and she has a book out now called Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness. You know, seems pretty simple. Just love, success, and happiness. Who needs any of that stuff? And we're going to find out much more about that book, how to do it, and so many other things. And, you know, that book there's another book you have coming out that can already be pre-ordered, I found out. Welcome to Inner Journey.
It's very nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with my question that I ask pretty much everybody. I've had tons of healers, people of service, shaman, medicine men, authors, musicians, anybody that contributes. And I found a constant through line or a consistent through line that there's a catalytic moment. There's something that, and I don't use this word lightly, really thrust them onto their path. Was that true of you as well?
Sort of. I've always known that I was to be of service. When I was a little girl, I thought I was supposed to be a nun. And I actually spent a couple of days in a convent after I finished high school, you know, like a trial. And at the end of that week, I was real sure that I didn't think I was supposed to be there. But I actually went that far. So I always have seen myself in a role of service. There was a moment when I was in my corporate job, and I had a family and wanted to put my sons through college. So I had a big money machine going on. Mm-hmm. And there was a point when I was running up against what I thought was some opposition in my job, and I loved my job, and I always thought I would continue this kind of job because it created a lot of money and it gave me the opportunity to do the things I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But I went to the altar and I said, okay, if I'm supposed to do this esoteric stuff full time, I'll do it. 1 month later, I was let go with severance.
Wow.
Yeah.
The universe said, I'm sorry, what? Okay, we could do that.
Yeah. It's so true. I was bursting with happiness because at the same time, while I loved my job, now I needed to do this work. It was my mission.
Okay. I want to circle around. I know this is going to be an odd sort of out of context question. You're with the nuns for a week. What made you say, yeah, this ain't for me?
When you go away and contemplate for a week,
mm-hmm.
you get a chance to think about what you've done with your life so far and where it would go, and what you could do if you were part of a group like the nuns, and what you could do if you weren't. And I just came to that realization that my life would be better for me outside of that. Besides, I had already, dated and stuff like that. So I was, pretty aware of what I would be walking away from in terms of relationship. But it wasn't until I was there that I thought, do I want to live my whole life without ever kissing a boy again?
I understand. Well, not exactly, but I understand. Okay. Do you mind if I just jump in? The title of your book is Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness. All right, so kick. How do we become genies? How do we create all this for ourselves?
Well, the book is originally written with the idea that those people who are very logical and very left brain would have the tools that they could use that those of us who have very intuitive sides use all the time. So my thinking was, I want to bridge that gap, because there's lots of people who have intuitive gifts and they're doing their thing. And then there's all these other people that are looking at those guys pointing and saying, they're a little out of it. And then they turn out to be right. So then everybody wonders, well, what do they got that I don't got? So my initial plan was to reach an audience that was very wide, that could handle hearing scientific and mathematical principles and how they relate to manifestation. The benefit is that both sides, people who are both logical and people who are very intuitive, discover the natural laws of the universe that support manifestation. And once you learn that, then you no longer doubt that manifestation is real, or that you can do it, or that what you're working on is going to go away. You just don't doubt it anymore.
Here's one of the issues that I have with people that are so familiar with this. You gave us so much there. We need to circle back, slow it down, and break it down.
Okay.
Here's what I heard. One of the things that I heard is you have a really good grasp of the scientific, analytical side of the world, and you also understand the intuitive, energetic, spiritual side of the world, and you also are capable of recognizing how those two are converging paths more and more. Is that accurate?
Yes. Not only is it accurate, but it was my vision that the way to help people who were very logical grow into their intuitive side, that everybody has it, they've just shut it down. And my version of that bridge was to use their language on the spiritual stuff.
Could you give us the most or a simple, simplistic illustration of that?
Yes. Okay, so everybody's heard of noise-canceling headphones, but not everybody knows how they work. You want to try?
Sure.
So noise-canceling headphones work because the technology creates the exact sound that's being sounded in reverse, and then those two sounds are matched, synced up, and it causes the wave to collapse. Okay? That's science. So you need a replicating sound like a lawnmower or a jet engine, and it literally captures that wave, inverts it, syncs it, and the wave collapses and it disappears. Now, when I first heard of noise-canceling headphones, because of my intuitive nature, I knew that there was no way you could reverse or remove a sound that was made. I knew intuitively that sound goes out and keeps going out forever. Mm-hmm. But if you can capture a sound that's repeating itself over and over and then play a sound against it that causes that wave to collapse, the sound goes away. Now, how is this useful? Well, one of the things that my angels taught me when I was in college was that every time I had a negative thought about something, I could think two positive thoughts. I called them twofers, kind of like pizza, right? But I was calling these things twofers long before those pizza guys. Anyway, when you have a thought, let's say, I hate my job, then you follow it with two positives, but they pay me really well and I've got great medical coverage. Okay? What that does is antidotes the negative thought. Now, why is it important to antidote that negative thought? It turns out that what we put out, the universe looks to match. What we resist is what persists. So when we're putting out this negative energy, I don't like my boss, the universe is going to give us more of that same energy, more people that we don't like. So the way to get around that is when you notice, and you train yourself to notice your thought and your negative thoughts, and then you use two positives right away, immediately following, and it will completely antidote it. Now this gets better because I was a transfer student into a college, and I had made this agreement with my angels shortly after transferring in. And you know, in college, how you commiserate, oh, the food sucks, you know, and you got to say something bad about everybody, right? That's just how people talk at that age. And so I would do that, and then I would turn around and offer these two positives because that was my contract. You know, I agreed that that would help me get me out of my funk. It was only 2 weeks, and the director of admissions came to me and said, I've heard about you. I want you to take the prospective students around.
Wow.
And as mothers do, when I told my mother, she said, talk about the blind leading the blind.
Wait. I think you need to do two positives for that whole as mothers do thing.
Well said, and thank you. So my mother is an absolutely darling woman who's very positive and very loving and very generous. And I so love that you just got me.
That is hilarious. You are so amazing. When we come back, I want to talk to you more about angels. But before we go away, I want to actually just have you isolate that one concept. The universe responds to what?
The universe gives you whatever it is that you're holding energy on. So if you're thinking about the person you love, you're going to get more of that loving energy. If you're thinking about what you don't like, you're going to get more of that. It's called the law of energy dominance. And I named it that way so that people could easily understand that whatever dominates is the dominating aspect. And I'll give you an example. Everybody knows how this works, even though they've never labeled it this way. If you're on your way to work and you're running late, it never fails that you're even later than you should have been. So you get hung up in traffic, something happens, your car stalls, whatever. If you're early, you get there in much less time than typical. So if you start to notice that, you can see the validity of the law of energy dominance. So when you're early, you get lots of early, and when you're late, you get lots of late. So the idea is once you know that, then you can consciously choose to use your thoughts, your energy, your intentions to get you what you want.
That is beautiful. And we are here with Maureen St Germain, and your latest book is called
Be a Genie. Create love, success, and happiness.
And how can they find you, and how can they find the book?
I am on the web, Maureen St Germain. You can buy the book at Amazon, regular retailers, our website, just about anywhere.
And we'll be back with Maureen on Inner Journey with Greg Friedman right after this short break. Welcome back. You are listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman here on KX 93.5 FM, community-supported radio in Laguna Beach. You can also catch us on co-creatorradionetwork.com. You can also find out more about life coaching, about journeys all over the world at gregfriedman.com. And check us out and like us on Facebook. We appreciate it. It's also Inner Journey with Greg Friedman. Tonight, we are laughing, we're giggling, we're having a blast with Maureen St Germain. Maureen, welcome back.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So a couple of times in the last story you were telling, you were mentioning talking to my angels, making deals with my angels, going out to dances with my angels.
I didn't say anything about dancing.
Yet. So tell me about where this began, how it began, and your relationship, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm not exactly sure when it started. I didn't have a pivotal event like a lot of people talk about. I was just very precocious with that kind of information as long as I can remember. As a little girl, we had this big book, like a giant dictionary, only it was called Lives of the Saints, and it was gold leaf, and it had these beautiful gold pages, And I would sit and read it. Everybody else is reading comic books. I'm reading this. And we grew up on a farm, so there wasn't a lot of reading time floating around. And one day, this book that I had been reading wasn't where it was supposed to be, was not on the bookcase. And I thought about it for a second, and I just asked, well, where's the book on the Lives of the Saints? And immediately saw where it was, in a closet on an upper shelf. So I went and got a kitchen chair and climbed up on the chair and got the book out. That was the last time my mom hid it.
Wow. So what did your mom say to that? Was she shocked? What did happen?
I don't know that she ever said anything. My mother is very psychic as well, and I believe in my case it's generational, which may account for why I was so precocious with it. There were many times that I would come home and be about ready to say something to my mother, and she would say, I've been thinking about this all day. If you still want blah, 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 it's okay. And I had been all day thinking, I'm going to insist. I've got to do this.
You were working up your court case. I have all of my good arguments here.
And she'd already heard them in her head and said yes. So that's cool. And it's very interesting. My mother, for example, when she was a young girl, played with the Ouija board just one time. And she asked where my dad was, who was at that time captured and behind enemy lines. No one knew where he was.
Wow.
And the Ouija board started to spell so many kilometers outside of some city. And as soon as it spelled out the word kilometers, my mother just flipped the board, and that was it for her. Because she realized if it's given us in kilometers, it probably is something she didn't want to mess with. She thought more of it like a toy,
Wow. So normally, Danny, our production coordinator, you could tell poignant moments because his hair stands on end. Well, you just made my hair stand on end. That was really cool. And your relationship with angels developed. And can you walk us through that a little bit?
Well, because of the fact that I have always had this love affair with angels and Mary Magdalene and Jesus and, the whole Christian thing. It's how I thought. It's how I thought about things in general. I experience things. I can still tell you the day I had my first communion, because I had my first communion and I thought, I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life. It was just that important to me.
Wow.
So for me personally, I'm very fortunate, because although I'm very secular as a person and as a personality, I like my pretty clothes. I like my makeup and hair and stuff. I still live an inner spiritual life all the time.
And how do you distinguish between talking to an angel or just your intuition, your connectedness to the universal energy?
Well, initially, I didn't differentiate any one particular angel. So like when I was in college and I was really upset about what I was going through and I needed some help, and I prayed to the angels, that my guardian angel that I knew I had, I need some help here, and I need some kind of tool to help me get through it. And this information came in, and I knew right away it came from the angels. There was no question. I was very fortunate about that. So differentiating for me wasn't as important as hearing it.
That is one of those things I'd like you to repeat.
So differentiating who the angel wasn't as important as hearing the message of the angel. I was very clear that it was from on high. And I will tell anyone who wants to know that the difference between the angels and the saints, or the angels and the ascended masters, is very clear. The angelic realm are here for miracles. They're here to help us remember what it's like to be with God. They're the messengers. In technical terms, they're the repeaters, the cell towers.
Uh-huh.
They help us remember what it's like to be with God, and that's what their job is. And the ascended masters and the saints, if we know in the traditions, those beings are here as way showers. They've done it, and they're helping us figure out how. They're the teachers. Those are the beings that are here to help us learn and understand and grow.
I have so many more questions about this. I love this. However, I'm hogging you all to myself, and I have a phone bank full of people wanting to speak with you. How do you feel about jumping in?
I'd love it.
We have Kathy calling in from Maryland. Kathy, welcome to Inner Journey.
Hi, how are you?
Phenomenal. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Kathy.
I have your book, but I have to read it because I have so many books on my Kindle, and I'm on my spiritual journey, but I'm feeling a little stuck.
How so?
I'm wondering if you could give me some information.
So are you stuck because you can't get into a program that makes you feel good?
Yeah, I've done Reiki, and I just keep reading books, and I'm trying to find my niche.
Help me understand what you mean when you say I'm stuck. What does I'm stuck look like to you, first of all?
Well, I feel like I should be doing something by now. I should be hearing more, talking to my angels more, feeling them, I guess.
So let me ask you, do you have a daily practice?
I do.
And what is your daily practice?
I usually call them in the morning, and I ground myself, and then throughout the day, I'll call them in, tell them to help, ask them for help and to guide me.
So it sounds like you're good at the action steps of calling them in, but then the passive steps of listening, maybe you're not so good at.
Right.
So what I would recommend is that you work with some guided meditations. There's lots of them out there that will make you sit for 30 minutes and just listen to someone else call out invocations to the angels or to the ascended masters or whatever appeals to you, and let that guided meditation cause you to be still. And that will help greatly. Then once you do that, then there will be other kinds of meditation you can learn. But what's happening is it sounds like you're really good at bringing them close, but you're not so sure how to listen. And so because you're not sure, we're going to give you dance lessons. And the dance lessons are listening to someone else call out to the angels for you so that you can get used to what that feels like. And I say call out. I don't mean just call out, because the call outs include the silence and the beautiful, bed of music underneath. that make it easy for you to be silent and not let your monkey mind, take over.
What's really tough for me is I have tinnitus, and so it's like that constant ringing, and so it's hard to be still and listen.
Okay, so I'm going to just reflect back a couple of things that you've done just in this short phone call. One is you've told us that you're not doing it, and the truth is, and doing it in air quotation marks, the truth is you actually are in process. It's not a destination. That what you're doing is valid and valuable and deserves credit and accolades. It deserves recognition. What you're doing right here, right now, if you can do that, if you could feed that, you're going to generate more of that. If you keep denigrating that, then the universe is going to go, hey, we just gave her a gift and she threw it in the trash. Why the heck would we give her more?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. And then, we all have our things, whether it's tinnitus or issues with walking or our back or whatever it happens to be, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual. It's not a bad thing. It is an opportunity. How can you use this to your advantage?
So you're on some kind of treatment program, I hope, for your tinnitus. And
Actually, I am. Actually, I'm going Friday to see about maybe getting a hearing aid.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm going to recommend to you a technique that I do not do, but I know of that works very well, and it's called, it's a work by Dr. Bradley Nelson, and it's the emotion code work. Find somebody who's certified in that and get them to work on you, because it's very likely that you're going to be breaking through an old barrier, and you're trying to break through, and, it's like you're chipping at the wall, but you're not going to be able to make the breakthrough you'd like. This kind of work, emotion code, will help you have the breakthrough you're looking for, and your tinnitus might actually go away with that kind of work. It's pretty remarkable.
Is that the same as EFT?
No, it's not.
No.
EFT is tapping. This is emotion code work that's done for people, and it removes emotional blocks, but very often the emotional blocks are what's holding a physical problem in place. And once those emotional blocks from other lifetimes or this lifetime are cleared, then that wall, so to speak, dissolves, and your body doesn't need to hold that behavior anymore.
It's possible that I have fear.
Well, absolutely. It's
we all have fear, honey.
Now,
I was afraid coming down here. It's goofy. I had to rent a car and get in my car and drive, and I was afraid. But we still do it.
Mm-hmm.
And what Maureen was just speaking about is exactly what I meant by this isn't necessarily anything bad or wrong or icky. If you learn through this, if you grow through this, this is going to give you such an array of tools to be of service to other people. You're going to have such great empathy and so many different experiences, even if it's not one-on-one or one-for-one in exactly the same kind of situation. You're opening yourself up to so many different ways of learning tools and applying tools.
Mm-hmm. And I can't say that they don't hear me, because I see a lot of numbers, on the clock all the time.
That's excellent.
Excellent.
That's just excellent.
Kathy, what a great phone call. Thank you very much for calling into Inner Journey.
Thank you, and thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome. So glad to speak with you.
How do you feel about just jumping right into another phone call?
Let's do it.
We have Douglas calling in from Chicago. Douglas, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Phenomenal. Welcome to Inner Journey.
Well, thank you for welcoming, and thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. What can we do for you this evening?
Well, actually, I was calling in with the question because I haven't talked to Maureen in quite a long time, and I want to say thank you, Maureen, because you're one of the best teachers and one of the best friends a guy could ever have.
Thank you, thank you.
There was a lot of emphasis on guy.
Well, right now I'm a guy. So I've been doing a lot of research and work on the outside of some of the things that we worked on with the Merkaba in the beginning many years ago.
Yes.
And I've been following Thomas Campbell and, doing some research and some development with DNA and spiritual surgery and, remote healing. And what you were talking about, the angels, actually brought something up, because I'm totally in agreement with you about the angels. But at the same time, I wanted to know if you had any insights or any thoughts on basically that whole practice of the remote healing and the spiritual surgeries?
Well, the spiritual surgeries I really can't speak to because although I've seen them on the internet, I don't have any firsthand knowledge, nor do I know anybody that's had that kind of thing done. I have been in the presence of John of God, and there are many that talk about his psychic surgeries, but I have not witnessed those.
Well, to clarify, that psychic surgery, what I'm talking about is a spiritual surgery, is actually where you actually pray and you actually burst light into the molecular level of the DNA at the cellular level of the person that you are putting your intention on, and you're spiritually performing a surgery at the DNA light-encoded level of their rhizome codes in their actual DNA strands itself, in the RNA, the DNA, and all the other A's.
So, Maureen, what do you think about that?
I think that this kind of work is the coming age of spiritual healing, and I am so proud of you, Doug, for what you're accomplishing and what you're doing, and I am so excited for this kind of work because it's the same idea as this emotion code work. It's remote healing that impacts at energetic levels that people can't see, and it is hugely powerful.
Doug, that's really, really phenomenal, and I want to find out more about this because I'm completely ignorant about it, and we are coming to the top of the hour, but I do thank you very, very much for calling into Inner Journey. Truly
thank you,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Hopefully we'll all connect again, and God bless you all.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You have
Love
a
you.
lovely evening.
Bye-bye.
Love you too, bye.
And we'll be back just after this short break with more Inner Journey and Maureen St Germain. Welcome back. You are listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman here on KX 93.5 FM, community-supported radio in Laguna Beach. So often, when I ask somebody what they want, I'm telling you 99.9% of the time, when I ask somebody what they want, they're going to tell me what they don't want. And Maureen was just talking to me about how to dump the don't wants. You want to share with the class, Maureen?
Yes, I'd love to share. What you do is you get a journal at the dime store, one that isn't expensive. Make sure it's cheap, because that way you're not worried about how much money you spend on a cheap journal. And you write everything that you don't want in the journal, and you give a page for each don't want. So I don't want to fail. I don't want to run out of good ideas. I don't want to be poor all my life. I don't want to grow old and ugly. Whatever it is. After you write all of the don't wants, and they each get their own page, you let it sit. Within 24 hours, you're going to come up with a few more that you didn't want, a few more things that you don't want. So then you finish those out. And then you go back and you write the antidote of each one. So when you say, I don't want to run out of good ideas, you say what you write below it is, I am a wonderfully creative person who has millions of creative ideas. I love what I do. When you say, I don't want to be in this job forever, I love my job. And after you write this whole list, then you ignore the top part and you make a little recording for yourself that lists all the things that you do want. And you listen to it whenever you feel like it. Could be daily or whatever. Now, to really help you get the idea on this, my freebie this month is based on this whole concept. And it's a wonderful story about a client of mine who was in a terrible funk. She had a job she didn't like. She was in a difficult relationship. I could go on and on. And she had this big list of like 30 things that she didn't want. So after we wrote all the things that she didn't want, I waited 24 hours. She had a few more. And then I wrote the antidotes for her. And that, my friends, is a recording that I made for you. These new ideas, I am a woman of substance, what I do in the world makes a difference. Those kind of statements are now in a freebie that is available for you on my website as a free download. That's going to go away probably on Tuesday or Wednesday because it was part of my New Year's package.
But they are going to have to wait until the top of the hour to hear how to get a hold of that freebie.
Okay, sounds good.
We are here on Inner Journey with Greg Friedman on KX 93.5 FM. We are just having the best time this evening with Maureen St Germain. Such a pleasure to have you on, and can't wait for the second hour and to explore wherever we may go. Again, you're listening to Inner Journey, and we'll be right back at the top of the hour. Welcome back. You are listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman here on KX 93.5 FM, community-supported radio in Laguna Beach. You can also catch us on co-creatorradionetwork.com out of Texas, where we are on 7 days a week. Thanks to you. Thank you very much. And if you want to find out more about life coaching, go to gregfriedman.com. And lastly, Facebook, Inner Journey with Greg Friedman. Check it out. Give us a like. Thanks. Tonight, we are here with such a cool lady, Maureen St Germain. She is a numerologist. She does Akashic record readings, and we haven't had time to talk about any of that because amongst many, many things that she does, she is an incredibly prolific author, and her latest book is called Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness. Welcome back, Maureen.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and to have this fun, fabulous conversation. One of my things is alliteration, and there's a great story in my book that I'd like to share about that, and it has to do with John Lennon.
Oh, I love that. I want to hear that, but it's not fair because we teased something right before we left at the top of the hour. What was that we were talking about?
We were talking about the free download on my website, and I have a freebie every single month. And this particular freebie is, last month's freebie, still on the air, still available. And it has to do with make this year a good one. And there's a really cool story attached to it about one of my clients who actually had an experience. But before I tell you that, I better tell you the website name because they're making faces at me over here. So my website name is MaureenStGermain.com. That's MaureenStGermain.com.
MaureenStGermain.com.
So when you go to my website, there's a scroll bar at the top that says free download. Just click on it. It'll take you to the screen. It'll ask you for one thing, and that's your email. And if you don't like getting email from me, I only have 1 or 2 emails a month. But if you don't like it, just unlist yourself. No biggie. We don't care. We want you to have this stuff. So the storyline has to do with this lovely woman who had all these negative thoughts and how we fixed it. After she had this particular set of new mantras, if you will, I'm a woman of substance, like that, she calls me maybe 4 weeks later, and she tells me that her spouse, who is a filmmaker in New York City, his iPod was stolen. And he didn't even tell her for 2 days. He was so upset. And she asked him where it occurred, and he said he was doing a shoot at a store, and when he went to collect his things, it wasn't there. So on her own, without telling him, she went to see this guy, took the baby, talked to the owner, and said, look, there's a 50-50 chance it's one of your staff that took it. I'm wondering if you would at least ask. We're a young couple. We don't have a lot. It would mean a lot if we got this back. And we promise we're not interested in anything. No questions asked. We just would like our iPod back. The next day, the shop owner called her. He had her iPod. He had decided to give the karma lecture to his staff. That, I believe, is the result of her saying to herself every day, I am a woman of substance, and what I do matters in this world. That's on your freebie.
That is really cool. So many different directions I want to go. You were also, we had a caller in the last hour. Her name was Kathy. And there was one thing that you felt like we'd be remiss in not sharing with Kathy.
That's true. Kathy, if you're still listening, and I hope you are, one of the things that I have learned when I'm giving readings in the Akashic Records is that many times people like you are actually supposed to be, and your whole mission is just to be supportive to you, to maybe look after other people, support this new knowledge that's coming in, and to just be, not a doer, but a beer. Now, I want you to think about this. Go look at a couple of biographies of very wealthy people, and you're going to discover that the people who have resources don't always work. Sometimes they're spending their whole life studying, and that's all they do. And if you had unlimited resources, and we all do, why not consider the possibility that your job is to be, and that being is a light to others?
And I love that you said that, and I'm so glad that you brought it up on air. And Kathy, hopefully you're listening. If you're not listening now, listen to the podcast. We'll put it up tomorrow. You were going to tell a story including John Lennon, but I want to hear it so badly that I'm going to have you put it off until later.
No worries.
How about jumping into some phone calls?
Sounds good.
We have Sharon calling in from Montana. Sharon, welcome to Inner Journey.
Yes.
And
yes.
Thank you very much for waiting. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Well, we're happy to call in.
Excellent. And what can we do for you this evening?
I have a question for Maureen. I was talking to Jose on Friday, and he showed me the Merkaba and the energy of the red gold that is out in one of your later publications.
Yeah, it's on my blog. Mm-hmm.
Yes, my question is the red gold energy part of the 5D Merkaba, and will you be teaching that as you travel the country,
all right,
teaching the Merkaba class?
Maureen, before you answer this question, we need to know who's Jose and what the heck is Sharon talking about?
Jose, Charles, and Sharon are fans of Maureen.
and I know who you are. So Jose is just one of the students who follow my work. And she knew who I was going to be. I knew that she would know who she was talking about. Okay. So the storyline is this particular energy field emerged while I was doing this new 5D Merkaba. So what's happening with this absolutely phenomenal new meditation, the 5D Merkaba, it's serving as a portal for powerful energy. Now, this particular red gold energy, those of you who are listening, you can go to my website and you can see these pictures. There's a very simplistic picture that I drew that looks like a little kid drew it. And then there's a picture that was drawn by an artist friend of mine named Andre Balog. And his picture is just like mine. You just have to use your imagination and see that. Now, what I discovered is that when you put gold on glass, it has a pure red color. So now I understand. I did not know this when I saw it. The edges are pointy and it has an accordion quality. And what you're doing with that energy, you see it as a visual thing in front of you, as if it's alive, that you can open it and squeeze it and surround something that needs healing. And what it does is transforms it to its most evolved state. So what happens when people learn this new meditation, which has not been released yet, I've done a few trial classes with people. When you do this new meditation, you become a conduit for information that is far greater than was possible before. And so the new meditation will be released soon. It's coming out probably in the next couple of months for sure. It's actually been recorded and it's at the pressing company, but you never know how long these takes. But the more important thing is we're going to include a full explanation of it in the new book, Waking Up in 5D.
And how do we get that book?
Well, you can get it on my website, MaureenStGermain.com, and pre-order it and be patient because I am not done writing it. And it has to go to the presses pretty soon because of some other deadlines that are in front of me. We're real close, actually. And the information in the actual meditation and the instructions are sufficient that if you were to buy the CD, you'd be able to learn it yourself, especially if you've already been doing this meditation known as the Merkaba.
Okay.
Sharon,
and
what a great question.
There's a second part of this question about the golden heart. Could Charles ask that part? He's sitting right here.
Come on down, Charles.
Okay.
Hey, Charles. Welcome to Inner Journey.
Yes. Good to hear you guys.
Thank you very much. So you have a question about a golden heart, I hear.
Yes. We were on Maureen's website, and she had an experience of some sort in France, and it was how does one get a golden heart without getting the eye-popping chest pain she experienced in France?
Well, maybe you can ask in your dream time or in your meditation time for a replica of the one that Maureen has, and with your own higher self permission, I can imagine that you could replicate that. When I was in France at this very phenomenal place called the Cave of Bethany, a very powerful ceremonial place that Mary Magdalene used, I didn't even know myself. It was like a voice in my head said, ask for the golden heart. So I did. And then what happened is when my body brought it in, it purified a bunch of things in me that weren't so pure. And that's why it was so painful. Anybody out there who's listening, if you have chest pain, please call the ER first. Please get help first. And there's a great story. Read the blog, and you'll get the full Monty on that one.
Thank you.
Okay, and Charles, one of the things that's really important to know, pain is only necessary for those people that need the pain in order to do some kind of part of their process. It's not going to happen with everybody at all times. Everybody has their own individual experience. While one person goes through an experience and feels intense pain, the other one can feel incredible ecstasy. It's not about the process, it's about the individual.
And I will
Good
also
point.
Yeah. And I would like to add, in my case, a lot of the work that I do is planetary. And so many times when I'm processing pain, it's because I am being asked, or I've chosen to move through me energies so that I can clear the planet, and it's done.
Charles, thank you very
Yes.
much for having Sharon call into Inner Journey.
Thank you very much.
I love you guys.
The book, again, is called
Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness.
And we are here with Maureen St Germain on Inner Journey with Greg Friedman, and we'll be back right after this short break. Maureen, before we split, there was some talk of this guy named John Lennon.
Yes, there was. You know, I read a lot of books and cover a lot of ground. And because Be a Genie had quite a metamorphosis as a book, it came through probably 30 revisions. And I had a 3-book deal with a major publisher as when it first came out. And then after I had delivered the manuscripts, I kept hearing from the company, and it's a big company, the same people who did Conversations with God, your check's in the mail, my advance. But it never came. And what was going on in their world is they had some big investors that were coming in, and they started stalling. Maybe they had a loss in the stock market or something. So then they didn't come in with their money. So then my book fell off the table, and they actually broke their contract with me. And in this process, I took it as a big loss, of course, who wouldn't? But at the same time, I recognized that maybe this book wasn't ready. So in the process, I've gained a lot of knowledge on new things that maybe wouldn't have made it in the book. This has been in the book all along. And it came from a storyline that I had read in John Lennon's biography. And I shared it in one of my classes. And one of the people who was in my class actually knew the Beatles. And he has an afterword. So I'd like to share with you this particular package.
Perfect.
This is John Lennon writing. I always knew I was going to make it, but I wasn't sure in what manifestation. I used to read the reviews of books and art and music before I ever put anything out, and I'd half expect my name in the review. Even though I hadn't written a book or a song, I was expecting to see myself in the newspapers, be famous. I knew it was just a matter of time. A man in my class said, John loved to chant. We all know that now. And he would drive the van when they went all over Europe to various gigs. And on their way, he would have them do this little chant. And the chant went like this. Where are we going? Straight to the top. What will we find when we get there? Fame and fortune. The man who was friends with these guys said, he told me we forgot to include happiness.
Wow.
So if you like alliteration like I do, I'll give you a rewrite. Where are we going? Straight to the top. What do we find when we get there? Fame and fortune. Fun. flexibility, and fulfillment.
Love it. And that goes back to that caller, Kathy, again, because we don't know. That you could have looked at that whole thing with the book deal as devastating and horrible, and we're just too myopic. Our nose is too close to the mirror to recognize that every single thing is an opportunity. Our job is to find that, to realize that, to make that real.
That's all true. And the opportunity is always there to make lemonade out of lemons.
Did you just make that up? We have had Darlene waiting patiently for a long, long time. Darlene, welcome to Inner Journey.
Well, thank you so much.
You are
it's nice
quite
to,
welcome.
nice to talk with you, Greg, and how wonderful to be able to talk with you again, Maureen, too.
Thanks for calling in.
Do you have a question for Maureen this evening?
I do. And actually one of the last calls also kind of could make my conversation go in all sorts of different directions, but I think I'll go back to where my original intention, which had to do with the different, in developing a spiritual practice. And I'm working on kind of continually refining my spiritual practice to support my deepening connection with Source. What's been happening is I've been having a lot of downloads, and my next process is moving that into writing. So I've been doing the Merkaba meditation, which is, I guess I put it in the category of an active meditation, because, oh my goodness, it certainly is. Wow. You want life to start moving quickly. And then, but what I'm beginning to think now is that what has been missing as well is more stillness as well. So I'm also looking forward to the 5D meditation when it comes out, Maureen. I am just chomping at the bit with that one. But looking at the balance of my spiritual practice, and you have any thoughts?
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I visualized as you were describing this is the concept that you're getting a lot of downloads. And I want to share with all of you what she's really talking about is in meditation, ideas come forward and concepts come in, and there are things that you know you didn't think of on your own because they weren't there before your meditation. Now, what a lot of people do is they journal right after, or they take time to dictate into a recorder of some kind. And I want everyone to know that even if you get a download and you don't know what it means, it's okay, because that energy is there in your physical body. When you're ready for it, it will be available to you. A lot of people get energetic downloads, and there's actually a sensation that feels kind of funny, and I'm going to describe it vocally. It's do 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 do, and it is
Wait,
so.
No, oh no. Oh, you got to do that again.
Okay, you ready?
Uh-huh.
This is something that can happen when you're in a meditation and you actually feel this sensation. Do 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 do. Now, what I want you to know is sometimes it's just got to be in a person. One of the things I will say is when you get a sensation that some information is coming in, or a download, whatever you want to call it, make sure you make clear intention. I only want a connection and information from beings of 100% God light. Because there are energies that are influencing us that have maybe more powers than we do, that aren't necessarily on the same agenda we are. And this way you're aligning with your divinity. So I think personally that in your case, Darlene, one of your jobs is just to be a receiver. And over time, that's going to turn into a written practice. And I have this strong feeling that you're going to know when you need to start writing it.
Does that make sense to you when she says it that way?
It does. It does, because the downloads have been. I have had that boom, 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 boom. I've experienced it. And not kidding. Like, really, it's like that. It's like a download like that into an energetic.
Yeah, and you feel it in your body, and there's
absolutely. That's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what it's like. I don't know how else you can do it other than do. And But there's other downloads that are, like when my eyes are closed, but all of a sudden there's brilliant white light and symbols that I can't recognize, symbols that I don't recognize. I write them all. I write as many down as I can. It's like I'm looking at it and trying to, it's like, remember that. So the downloads have been in a variety of ways that's just absolutely fascinating. And I feel the presence of a larger body of information. And I know that I'm clearly in process, but just...
Well, that's a great way. You're absolutely right. You're clearly in process, and we all are in process. That's really, really important to keep a hold of, keep in the forefront of our minds. But one of the things I want to go back to that Maureen expressed so beautifully, it's sort of like, the expression, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Well, your writing is not dissimilar to that at all. In other words, you're going to receive the information and receive it, and when it's time to start writing, you will not be able to stop yourself from writing. You will write when it's your time.
So one of the things that I really want to emphasize to all of our listeners is sometimes all you have to do is to be the conduit in the moment. And it's kind of like somebody who's not a football fan, and, somehow they get pulled into the Super Bowl party because everybody's going, and they go and they watch it. And then later they're encountering, maybe their grandson or some important person to them, and they say something about football that has a very powerful football reference, and the person who's not a football person gets the reference because they were there for that event, even though it didn't have any special meaning to them. So those of you who are listening who've had experiences that you can't quite translate yet, or you can't quite, make whatever it is out, you can't make it out, don't fuss too much, because what is really happening is we're all shifting and changing, and we're all being put in a place where we're able to receive and not necessarily understand it yet. And that's okay.
Thank you, Darlene. What a great phone call. Maureen, you've had great phone calls all night, but thank you very much for calling into Inner Journey, Darlene.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Maureen, once again, your book is called?
Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness. And
how do we get it?
You can get it on my website, Maureen St Germain.com, MaureenStGermain.com. You can buy it on Amazon. You can get it on your Kindle. You can get it anywhere.
Excellent. When we come back, I know that you've said that you have some tools and some helpful hints in order to turn days from hell back into heaven, if you would. And also, you said you have some helpful hints in order to help me manifest anything I want.
Oh, yeah.
We're speaking with Maureen St Germain, and we're on Inner Journey. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. You are listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman here on KX 93.5 FM, community-supported radio in Laguna Beach. As I've said before, you can catch us on co-creatorradionetwork.com. We are also at gregfriedman.com, and on Facebook, it's Inner Journey with Greg Friedman. Tonight, we are here with Maureen St Germain. She has written a fantastic book. Maureen, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. This has been a lot of fun tonight.
For us as well. Tell us the name of the book again, please.
It's called Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness. And it is a book that teaches you how to use knowledge that we've figured out in quantum science and sacred geometry that helps you improve your manifestations, because you no longer have to use one side of the brain and visualization. You can use both your left brain and your right brain.
Excellent. So before we went for break, there were two questions I had. One was, you talked about we all have days from hell, and you have some good hints to turn them into heaven. But before we get to that one, you have said that you could help me manifest.
That's true.
So talk to me, darling.
Okay. Tell me what you want to manifest.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm going to go with the title of the book. I love it. I like to create love, success, and happiness in my life.
You don't have that now?
2 degrees.
All right, so let's work on something very specific that would make you happier and more full of love. What would that be?
The long pause that you hear, that you rarely hear, is I'm actually thinking. Let's go with abundance.
Okay. So if you have abundance, what does that look like to you?
That would look like never being in want, always being in a place where there is enough that is ease and joyful and loving and loved.
So, ladies and gentlemen, did you notice that Greg began with what he didn't want? Never being in want. I love it. So now, what I want to play with you a little bit, and before we get into it. So this is just like the prep part.
Okay.
Do you know what the difference, this is a trick question because I love trick questions. What is the difference between how people who have meager means and people who have lots of resources, how they pay their bills?
None.
There's no difference between how those two people pay their bills?
Maybe the amount of stress.
All right. The answer is not none. And everybody who's listening knows that. People who have limited means pay their bills when they get paid.
Okay.
People who have abundance pay their bills whenever they want.
Okay.
That's huge.
Huge.
Get up in the morning, I don't feel like paying that bill. I'll pay it tomorrow. Because you don't have to worry that as soon as you get your money, you got to pay the rent, the phone bill, the car payment, whatever, because you're not living on the edge. So one of the fastest ways to have more abundance is to start practicing that way of living. Now, what that means, and by the way, I forewarned Greg that when my voice got all froggy, it meant that the person I'm talking to is not in their power. And my frogginess won't go away till I announce it. So there you go. Busted twice. Now, what I want to say is, if you could imagine for a minute, I'm going to give you a couple of the tools, and then we're going to go into how we do it in the Genie system.
Okay.
So one of the tools I tell people is to carry a $100 bill. And that $100 bill might be representative of how much you would be willing to spend on a purchase without thinking twice. You know, like you see something that you really like, something you can use, something that works for you, feels like a good buy, and you buy it. Maybe it's a jacket, maybe it's an accessory for your car or your equipment, whatever. But you keep that $100 bill there in your wallet.
I'm trying to be powerful because I can't stand your voice like this. I'm sorry, darling.
It's really funny, isn't it? So you take that and you keep that money going. And whenever you're out and about and you're in a store that you would be likely to spend money, you look at something that you really would like, a new set of headphones, and then you think about the $100 bill. And what happens is you're looking at those headphones, and instead of saying, you know, I can't get that right now, instead you look at the headphones, you go, I could get those. I don't feel like it. I think the ones I've got are going to last another year. And what happens is you move from a place of validating I can't have to a place of validating, well, I could have it if I want, but, you know, right now the $100 bill feels pretty good in my wallet. I'm going to leave it. So what happens is you're creating a new way of looking and experiencing your money. Another way you can do this with abundance is I actually learned this from another teacher, and I write on every check that I write, money is love. So I sign my name, and then right below it, I put money is love. And that, it's like, wow, that feels really good. Now, in your case, what I would say is abundance for you is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it and not being held up. And I want to tell you a story that I learned from a video I watched recently about two famous men, Langley and the Wright brothers. Mm-hmm. Langley was well-funded. He had $50,000 grant from the government. He had connections and everything. And this was the race to build the airplane. Wright brothers beat him to it. The day the Wright brothers succeeded, he quit. Here was a man with all the resources. So sometimes we deliberately put obstacles in our way to help us get better before we get bigger. And that's obviously what I did with this book. So I would say to you, answer the question again. What does abundance mean to you? What is it that's going on that you can't do that you would do if you had abundance?
Yeah, I'm rarely on this side of the microphone.
You set it up.
I know I did. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining my slowness. I would say it's exactly what you expressed. It's ease.
Okay. So now, let's pretend that you already have that. You already have enough resources that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going to be in that place where has already occurred. And you're going to look back and be aware of a moment when you had a conversation, a 3D conversation with someone. Who would you have your conversation with? And you can use a made-up name, but it has to be somebody that you know of that's real.
Well, it's funny. As you're saying this, I know that this is not where you're going, but I just kept thinking of the John Lennon stuff that you were talking about. And it's phenomenal. Who would I be having that kind of conversation with that's here now and alive in my life is what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
I would talk to my brother.
Okay. And he has a name?
He does.
Would you like to share it?
Sure. His name's Tony.
Tony. So you're going to have this conversation with Tony. Is it in person or is it over the phone?
Over the phone.
Okay. And you're now at this place where you can do anything you want. And you're going to have this conversation with Tony, and you're going to be validating that fact.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to talk about it? Who's going to talk first?
He would probably ask me what's going on and how I'm doing.
And what would you say?
Fantastic. Go ahead. What's the look? See, that look that you're giving me does not translate over the airwaves, so you're going to have to verbalize it, please.
So there's more. There's more. And what would probably be going on is you might be saying, now that I've become well established, it's such a joy to be able to do what I want when I want it and to be able to help others when I feel like it.
That's gorgeous. I'll take that one.
Okay. That's your movie of the mind. Now, I want you to pretend that you're actually saying that to Tony and say it to me.
It's fantastic. I'm in that place right now where I can really enjoy so much with so much ease and help so many more people than I was able to do before. And I just get such a kick out of it. It's fantastic that I have this for me and I have this for everybody else. My own version.
Yeah, your own version. Remember that you put others first. Always put your own air mask on first before anyone else's. So say it again, this time putting Greg first.
I get to do all these groovy things anytime I want, any which way I want, and it is absolutely amazing, including traveling.
Say it like you mean it. I'm not convinced. We're on the air. You can't use the faces that you make it mean. Give it to me. Make it real. Say it like you mean it. This is acting class now. And by the way, this is what I do in my classes.
I'm not acting, and that was real, but I'll do it again for you. I have no issue with that. I meant what I said. It's that I get to have all of this abundance. I have all of this abundance, and I have all of this ease, and I get to travel all over the world anytime I want, and it's so joyful, and I'm thrilled to do it, and I'm thrilled to do it, have so much. That what she was doing, by the way, again, now it's your turn. She was doing a nonverbal timeout.
So we have to wrap it up, unfortunately, but I want to be you for a moment, and I want to give it to you like your acting coach would.
You go, girl.
Tony, ever since things shifted for me, I am so happy. I finally figured out I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And the best part is I can take care of people when I feel like it too. I feel like I've come home to who I really am.
Dig it. Good thing I'm recording this. That's all I got to say. Now, not being facetious at all, these are the kind of things I could learn if I was reading your book right now.
That's true.
Where would I go to in your book to pick this up? What is there a specific section that focuses on this?
The book is divided into two parts, the practices and the principles. The practices are like what we're doing now, and some of the tools that I've kind of slipped in here and there, like the twofers and things like that. The principles are something that we haven't talked on the air, and that's because they're a little bit complex in the fact that they benefit from visuals. So you'll see pictures and drawings that'll help you understand some very straightforward mathematical principles or quantum principles, one of which we did talk about, which was noise-canceling headphones. And what this will do is burn into your awareness and your ability to think that there are certain immutable laws that we already know that we can apply to our own manifestations that will allow us to manifest easier, quicker, faster, and have more fun at the same time.
And this book is called?
Be a Genie. Create love, success, and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tremendous tool. I have packed so much information in it because I spent 20 years writing it.
It's gorgeous. It's phenomenal. You also have a new book available for pre-order right now. What's it called? And is there any place we could go to get a little sneak peek?
Yes, you can get a little sneak peek if you read my blog, because a lot of the things that are posted on my blogs, I have a blog called Maureen St Germain blog, and then there's another blog called Flower of Life blog, both of which are linked on my website. So just go to MaureenStGermain.com, MaureenStGermain, and you will find all of these resources. The new book is called Waking Up in 5D, and it's the magic of the new life we're all creating for ourselves. It also includes this new 5D Merkaba, which is off the charts wonderful.
And she's not kidding, and this is phenomenal, and I learned so much just hanging out with you, and I have so much fun doing it. Is there anything that you would feel remiss? Is there anything that you'd feel like, okay, I walk away from this, I should have said this to the listening audience?
I'd like to tell you why I have a tool for this day from hell. I used to say that once in a while to try to explain, a bad day. And one day I used it coming off of an airplane inadvertently when she said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, it's my day from hell because I got to get another flight, blah, blah, blah." And I promised myself I wouldn't say that anymore. And in the process, I said to the agent, "Well, I'm having a day of heaven on earth because I'm flying with your airline." And we laughed and went on our way. And I came home to a huge flood, but everything worked smoothly. The plumber came when he was supposed to. I picked drilled a hole to find the broken pipe and was accurate. The plumber didn't charge me very much money. My neighbor came over to help. It all fell together. And I got on the plane later that day and sat there and said, "How did that happen? How did that go so smoothly?" And the answer was, "Well, you asked for a day of heaven on earth." And I thought, heck, I'm going to do that every time I have a really full day. But what I have discovered is you can ask for it every day. I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth for me and you and everyone you come in contact with. And you can too.
That's absolutely beautiful. The book is called Be a Genie, Create Love, Success, and Happiness. And we have had the extreme pleasure of hanging out with Maureen St Germain. Maureen, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for bringing me to this beautiful place. So much fun.
If you've got more questions and we haven't been able to get to you, I know we had emails, and I'm sorry, we'll do our best to get to them hopefully next week. If not that, if they're specifically for Maureen, we'll forward them along. Please feel free to email us at greg@gregfriedman.com. Also, please check out and like our Facebook page. It's Inner Journey with Greg Friedman. As always, I'm incredibly fortunate to have Danny Donaire as our production coordinator. He's not only a coordinator, he's also an author in his own right. He's written a book called 7 Years in 7 Days, A Life of Now, spectacular book full of simple, ingestible, motivational, inspirational quotes. He's amazing. Check it out. You can find Danny on Facebook as well. Donaire, spelled Donayre. And as always, I cannot begin to thank you, the listening audience, enough. This show does not exist without your participation, your support. And for that, and so much more, I'm hugely grateful. You've been listening to Inner Journey with Greg Friedman. Good night.